Hey, Blender Bob here. About a year ago, I did a clip to show you some VFX we did on a movie. I wasn't allowed to tell you which movie it was from, but I was allowed to show you the stuff we did on it. And at the time, I was showing you the Blender part. Now I'm going to show you the compositing part. So I strongly suggest that you go back to this clip if you haven't seen it, or if you saw it a long time ago, watch it again. The link is right there. It starts at 6 minutes 47, but you can watch the entire thing if you want to, and then come back and we will continue with this one. Okay, so I'll be waiting. Go. All right, you're back. All right, let's continue. So this is the shot we're going to be working on. What have we done on this shot? Well, it's impossible to tell. Honestly, you can look very hard. Maybe you will find something, but 99.999% of the people won't even know there's CG in this scene, because this is what we do in visible effects. So what's the original shot? Well, let me show you. On the original one, you can see there's a big table there with rails. This is actually the rails that were used to move the camera. So when we got this shot, I was thinking, how the hell are we going to do this? The light keeps changing. There's this big table there. There are people in front of the table. Well, you just take it one step at a time. So the first step is to create people, right? Well, I'm not going to explain it again. I already made a clip about this. Go see it. Now, when you import a Blender image into Nuke, you won't see anything. You will just get a black screen. That is, if you use multi-layer EXR. So what do? You need to shuffle it. You need to tell it what do you want to see. So this is the shuffle node here, and you just go there and you click what you want to see. So I could see the depth or the diffuse color, whatever. I want the image. So I just need to do this and choose which channel that I want. There are actually two ways to shuffle images in Nuke. This is the old method where you just go there in the in one and you choose which channel you want to see. And then you have a secondary input, and then you start playing with all these colored boxes to switch the channels. It's a big mess. I mean, you can just shuffle, say I want everything in the red channel, or mix them and everything. It was a big mess. You need to be a nuclear scientist to be able to do this. Now this is the other way to do it. You just select your image and it connects the red, green, blue and alpha automatically. You can invert them if you want. Very easy interface. The problem is, when you choose this, you get the list of absolutely every channel available in the entire script. Not just for this image, but for everything in the comp. And it's completely stupid. Come on, the Foundry developers, do you try your tools before you publish them? Ha! Okay, so I select my image and I'm good to go. All these here were taking so much memory, even with 70 gigs of RAM, I couldn't render them. So I had to do this in 3 groups, the back, the mid, and the front part. Now I will connect them all with a merge node. So I press M to create the node and everything goes on B. So this one is the one in the back. Then I will put the one in the middle on top. And as you can see, it's a miracle. They are both together. Now I need to add the other one, the third one. It's hard to tell on the yellow background, but there's a little arrow here on the left that you can take and just drag it to add another input. So now I get all 3 of them on top of each other. And I will fast forward because I need to do the same thing for the front light and for the back light, because I had 3 lights in there. And I rendered them separately. You will see why later. The next step is to merge all these 3 light sources together. So I select these nodes, I press M, and now they are merged. But this time I need to change something. I want to put them as plus so that the light adds on top of the other one. Now I get what I want. So before, when we merged the 3 parts here, we just connected another input like this one here. Let me just move this so we can see it. Here we go. Now you see this little handle here. I could do this and add the other one on top, but this is not what I want, and I will explain to you why. So what I'm going to do is just put it back there. I'm going to create another merge node here. So this one and this one, press M, it's connected, and this one also I need to put it in plus. So now I got my 3 lights. The advantage of doing them separately is that now I can play with the mix slider here and change the intensity of the light. So this way I can tweak in comp the amount of light I need. Same thing for the light in the back here. I can decide the intensity that I want. As for the first group, if I want to control it, I can also create a merge node. It's not going to be connected to anything, but I'm just going to use the mix to play with the intensity of the light. So now I can reduce it just like the other ones. If you want to know more about this technique of changing the lights in compositing, well, I did a video on this called Lighting in Compositing. The link is up there, so just check it out. It's very cool, and it's done in Blender too. Well, Nuke, Blender, Natron, all of them. It's in there. Go check it out. Okay, now we got all our layers properly set up. Now we need to put it on top of the plate. So I'm going to move the plate right here, select this one and the plate, and I'm going to press M to create another merge node. Let's take a closer look at the renders that I did in Blender. Well, if you take a closer look, it looks like crap. I mean, it's grainy, there's not enough resolution, it doesn't look photoreal. That's because I went very fast, and I knew anyway it would work because everything is blurry. Look at the plate here. This is out of focus. The part that's actually in focus is the singer, and even him, he's blurry. And this is a 3K image. And these are shot with the most professional cameras and lenses you can imagine. It's never super sharp when you film something, and CG is always too sharp. So we're gonna have to fix that. But before that, we're gonna adjust the colors. How are we gonna do this? We're gonna use the grade node that you can create by just pressing the letter G. And that will give us probably the most important node in Nuke. This is the one that we use all the time for everything. Now, what's all that stuff? We're gonna go one by one. So let's start with the black point. Black point means that if you select part of your image using the eyedropper here, that area, that pixel will now become the new black. Every pixels that are darker will become black. You can see it here, it's all 0. The white point does the same thing but the opposite. If you select something, this point and everything lighter will become white. Again, if I measure the color here, you can see that the value is at 1. Oh, speaking of seeing the color values, last time I was complaining that in Blender, in the compositor, I couldn't see the color values. It was driving me crazy. Well, people told me in the comments, thank you everyone, that actually you can do it. You just need to go into your viewer, come on viewer, and you right click and you can see the values right there. So my bad. The next one is called lift, and what it does is to bring the black colors to the color that you selected. So if I click here, you can see that all the black became this color that I picked. But you can see when I did this, I also influenced the background. If I flip from one to another, you can see here the values are changing, and we don't want that. We want to tell the grade node to use the alpha channel for the color correction. So here on mask, I'm going to say use the alpha. So this way I'm only influencing my 3D render. Whoa, hold on, this is a mistake. I shouldn't do this. It looks like it's doing what I want to do, but if you take a close look here at the hair, you will see that if I use the mask, I get this white fringe here, which I don't want. The way to do this, the right way to do this is not to use the mask, but to pre-multiply the image here. So if I turn it back on, you can see now I get the expected result. The first rule of compositing is we don't talk about compositing. I don't know how many of you guys got that joke, but anyway, it's not important. Now, what's important is this rule, which is every time you do a compositing, you bring some CG images, you unpre-multiply them. Then you do all your color corrections together. Then you pre-multiply them, and after this, you do all your scaling, rotations, and translate whatever you need to do under it. But all the color correction stuff needs to be unpre-multiplied. And the reason is, this is how you avoid to get all these black lines around when you do some keying and when you do some extreme color corrections and stuff. You get the best result if you unpre-multiply it. Actually, it's not a question of getting the best result. That's the way to do it. That's the rule. That's the law. Okay, you unpre-multiply, you do your color corrections, you pre-multiply, you do your transforms. All right? Got that? We can already see the first problem here. We have too many colors in our CG render. If you take a look at the plate, everything is kind of monochromatic. You don't really feel the colors. It's all blue. So what I'm going to do here is to add a saturation node. I'm going to reduce the saturation to almost 0 so that we get rid of all these colors. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so we adjusted the dark parts. Now we're going to do the bright parts, and we're going to do this with the gain. So I go back to my grade node here. This is the gain, and it's going to do the same thing. It's going to take any white part, the whitest part of the image, and bring it to that color here. So I choose my color, and already we're getting closer to what we try to achieve. Now that I get a better result, I will adjust again my dark just to make sure I get the right color that I need. It's probably going to be something, yeah, something this. I won't get it just with the lift and the gain, so I will play with the gamma also to try to put a little bit more contrast on it. So reduce the gamma, and multiplier. Multiplier and gain, they're exactly the same thing. One issue that we have here is the highlights on the hair because there's no spotlight lighting them, so I would have to keyframe the highlights on the hair using the mixed value of the merge node as I showed you before, so I can control all the lights separately. So you see here, I went back to the beginning of the tree and I'm just changing the opacity of this node with the mix, and I reduce the light. Just like that. There's something else we need to fix also. There's more fog in the back, so here the colors, the darks, are lighter than in the back here. So how are we going to fix that? Well, we're going to use the Z-depth for that. And yes, I said Z-depth, not depth, because this is how it's supposed to be called, Z-depth, because we're supposed to work way up. Okay, never mind. So I got all my Z-depth here, and like I did before, because I had the front, middle, and back layers, I just combined them together, did a shuffle to extract my Z-depth, and then merge them together. Now, if I look at it, all I see is white. Well, there's nothing there. Actually, there is something there. If I move my mouse around, you can see all the values changing at the bottom here. Now I'm at like 30 something in the white. It's supposed to be between 0 and 1. So that means I'm whiter than white. And the more I go, the more white I get. So I don't see anything. Well, there's something we can do here. We can change the exposure, but this is only going to change the view on screen. It's not actually changing any colors. It's just so that we can get a better view of what's in there. So now we can see it. I'm going to use another grade node to try to match this. So what I want to do here is to get the black here and the white here, or in this area. So grade node, press G and connect it right there. Now remember the black point and the white point I've shown you before. So we're going to start with the black point and press here. Now everything becomes black. That's because my viewer was connected on the grade node and not the merge node. Okay, so I'm going to go with the white here, select this part. Here we go. I'm done setting up the black point and the white point. I can reset this. And now if I take a look at my grade node again, I can see the ramp that I want here. I'm going to play with the gamma because I would like the gradient to be more uniform. Yeah, just like this. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, okay. So we were here. We're going to create a new grade node. And on this one, what we're going to do is to select the mask here and plug it to the grade node that we just did for our Z-depth. Now we have to be careful here because you can see that the Z-depth is in the RGB, not in the alpha. So when I'm on my grade node here, I want to make sure that I'm using the red, the green, or the blue, any one of them, they're all the same, to get the mask that I want. So now if I come here, if I play with my grade and I modify something, you can see the changes I do are affected by the gradient that we just connected in the mask. So we just added some fog in the room. But it does affect the background too, because in my Z-depth, the background is actually white. So what can we do for this? This is something that happens because we added something as a mask for the alpha. So what we're going to do is just pre-multiply the image. So it's going to take the alpha of the original Blender renders and pre-multiply it with the result. So now we get what we want. So now I can adjust this to get the level that I want to match what's in the background. So I'm going a little bit fast here because I'm just doing a demo, not the final comp. But you can see I can play with the colors here and I can adjust it any way I want to make sure that the back here will match better and I won't touch here, the front area. Well, it's kind of mixed, the front and the back. Anyway, you know what I mean. I just adjusted it so that it matches. The next step is to blur the image using the same Z-depth that we just did. And to do this, we're going to make some space here so we can add more nodes in between. Now, to use the Z-defocus node, it needs to be part of the rendered image. But in our case, it's a separate file. So what can we do? We're going to combine them together. We're going to press K. And it's going to create a copy node, which is similar to shuffle, where you can take a channel and plug it into anything else. So in this case, the red channel into the Z-depth. And it's as simple as that. You're just going to pop up here. You say, I want the red to be copied to the Z-depth. And that's it. So now I added the Z-depth layer to my render. After this, I create the Z-defocus node. So Z-defocus, here we go. And now we need to adjust the settings to match the depth of field that we want. Okay, so I will connect this to my pre-mult here and move this around. All right, so Z-defocus. If you take a look at it, everything is blurry right now. Everything has the same level of blur. In the depth channel, you want to make sure you select depth Z, which is the one we just copied on top before. And here you can see the result, or you can see the focal plane setup. So this will allow you to visually see what you're doing. And you have this focal point here where you decide what you want in focus. So this part I want it in focus, or I want this guy in focus. And now if you play with the settings, you can see it makes some changes. So everything that is green is in focus, everything that is red is behind the focus, and everything that is blue is in front of the focus. Let me move the focal point in the center, it's going to be easier to see. So right now I have a very shallow depth of field, so I can make it wider if I want to. So that's how you can visually set up your depth of field. Okay, so I moved the focal point to this guy here, and I'm going to change the output to result so I can really see what's going on. I can see that it's way too blurry here. Alright, so while I'm tweaking this, I want to talk to you about something very personal. It's about, okay, let's say I'm happy with it. Now the problem is, if I change frame, woo, it doesn't work anymore because the values change completely. Now we got this big lens flare here that changes the black values. So what are we going to do to fix that? And this is where we separate the boys from the men. To do this, I need to sample a point on every single frame, and I need this point to always be on the same area because the camera is moving. So what I'm going to do is to create trackers to track certain part of the frames, and I'm going to stabilize the image. So let me show you. I'm going to create a tracker here. I just connect it there, and I press add track to create a tracker. I place the tracker on the guy's shoulder here, and I get a little bit of hair so I get enough contrast so I can track, because if I just get the guy's back, I won't have enough information. So you press play here and you let it track. Okay, how does it look if I scrub? Well, looks like the tracking went very well. Yeah, tracking is good. So what do we do with this tracker now? So you go here and you create a stabilizer, transform stabilizer. So what that does is it's a transform node that's going to do the opposite of what the tracker does. So if I connect it to my image here and I look at it, I put my viewer here, you can see now that the point that I tracked doesn't move on the image. It's the rest of the image that moves around. Follow the finger. Follow the finger. You can see this part is always at the same place. Follow the finger. While there's nothing to follow, the finger is not moving. I also need a tracker for the highlights, so I decided to take this guy's neck here because it looks pretty bright. So I'm going to track it the same way I did with the other one, and I'm going to create the stabilizer node, and I will connect it to the original plate. Same thing here. Now you can see this point has been stabilized and it's not moving anymore. Let me just rename my nodes here so I know which one is which. So this one is going to be dark and the other one is going to be light. So how can we sample the color for every frame? I'm glad I asked myself this question. Well, you do this with a curve tool. All you need to do is to take this box here and crop the region you want to sample. In this case, this was for the dark, so I want to get the guy's shoulder. Zoom in a little bit. Okay, tighter than this. So yeah, it's going to be the average color of what's in that box. And there's one more step. So we just need to go there. What we wanted was to get the average intensity here. We just press go and let it process. So go, all the frames, and you let it run. So if I take a look at the intensity data tab here, you can see that the values here will change. If I move on the time slider here, the values are changing. It's animated now. Obviously, you guessed it, I need to do the same thing for the highlights. Rock and roll! Now we got our highlights and our shadows sampled. So how do we connect this to our grade node now to automate the system? Well, let's get that grade node first. If you look at the little icon here with the wave, that means it's animated. If I press Ctrl and click on it and drag it to my lift, it will copy the animation right there. And I do the same thing with the highlights. So I press Ctrl, I drag it right there, and now I animated both the lift and the gain. Okay, so it's working, but it looks like crap. It's way too green. So yeah, if I change frames, you can see the values are changing, but the colors are completely wrong. That's because I took the sample at the wrong place. I shouldn't take it in the neck. Maybe I should have taken it in the hair. So I will just redo it. Now the beauty of all this is that because it's a link on the animation, everything updates automatically, so I don't need to reconnect anything. Okay, so we get a black line here around the characters that comes from the Z-depth, and it's because I didn't follow the first rule of compositing. But it's actually very easy to fix. We just need to change the order of the nodes. What I need to do is to put the Z-blur at the end of the chain. So I'm going to put the pre-multiplied at the last grade, and then I'm just going to reconnect my nodes. So what I want here is my copy is going to be connected here under the last node of the comp here. But now we run into another issue, is that it blurred the entire plate. It blurred everything. So how can we fix this? We're simply going to use the mask for the Z-defocus, and we're going to plug it into our image, the original image. So this way it's going to use the alpha to do the Z blur. It's going very well now. It looks close to the final thing. So if I changed frame here, let's try this one here. And yeah, the values are not perfect, so we still need to tweak some stuff. At this point, it becomes a manual job because nothing automatic will give you a perfect result. So you need to add more grain nodes and more tweaks and more keyframes on everything. And you can use Cryptomatte also to make some adjustments. Let me show you the final script for this shot. This is actually what's been used for rendering. So it's more complex. Many adjustment nodes and adding some grain and adding the lens flares. All these green ones here are the Cryptomatte to adjust every character. We can do it per character if we needed to. There's an entire group here for bug fixes, and we added grain. You can see that some nodes have been added to create the lens flare. Oh, and we don't want to forget the people that were in front, so we had to roto them here and just put them back on top of the comp. And here we go, with and without. Another example where you could use this technique is, let's say you have a night shot and you have an accident and you have a lot of police cars flashing red and blue, while you don't want to try to match all these lights in Blender. That would be crazy to try to animate all the lights and everything. Maybe in some situation you could just use the lift like this and just change the colors dynamically of your render to match the plate. So all these cool features I've just shown you here, I learned them all from a guy called Dan at Real by Fake. Dan is like this crazy compositor and he can do anything. And he's really, really good. And he showed me all these tricks. So Dan, thank you. Okay, so we get this great node that has tons of features and everything. How does it translate to Blender? How can we do the same thing? Well, let's check it out. Okay, let's go one by one. So for the black point here, if I select this is going to be my new black. I click here and this is the result I get. Now, in Blender, if I want to do the same thing, I need to use the RGB curve here, and I got my black level here. I will just select and get the same result. For the white point, I select this gray here. This is the new white. And in Blender, same thing here, white level, you select and you get the same results. For lift, the idea here, if you take a look at the reading, I get 17, 18. It changes a little bit because of the JPEG compression, but let's say I got like 18. What I want to do with the lift is if I click on a dark color, it's going to lift it all the way to 18, 17%. So this region here should become just like this. And if I do it, you can take a look at the readings here. And now I got the same thing here. I got a reading of 18. Now let's take a look in Blender. We do have a lift there in the color balance node right here. So let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens if I choose my color, the same square here. And when I click, I don't get the same result. So lift in Blender is not the same as lift in Nuke. I tried them all. The closest I could get is offset here. And it's not even doing the right thing, because if I try it here, you will see that when I click on my gray, I kind of get something similar to Nuke. But if I take a reading on the values, you will see that my black here is actually at 0.46, 45. It's not at 18 like it's supposed to be. So I couldn't find a way to get lift to work in Blender. If you know the way to do it, please tell me in the comments. Gain and multiply, I said it before, it's pretty much the same thing. So we're going to multiply a color on top. So let's choose a color here. Let's say this, I don't know, this blue here. I'm going to pick this one and I'm multiplying this blue over everything. In Blender, well, we have something similar. Actually, it's the same thing. It's called gain. So if I pick the color here, I will get the same thing. Offset, we're going to try it with RGB values. We're just going to write some numbers there. I don't know, like 0.2, 0.3, and 0.4. Okay, so now I get this offset in the colors. If I do the same thing in Blender here, I need to go in offset and I will change to 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, and I get the same result. So we're good for offset. The last one is gamma. Here I cranked it up to 5. If you want to do the same thing in Blender, the numeric value is here. It's the value here. So if I crank the value here from 5 to 5 here, I get the same result as I do in Nuke. And if you take a look at the RGB values, you will see that everything is at 5. So you could have changed it here also. So gamma, different interface, but same results. Now, if I do it manually, let's say I put the same numbers I did before for the offset, 0.2, 0.3, and 0.4, and I try the same thing in Nuke, I will get the same result. So I will put my gamma back to 1 the way it was, but in the colors here, I'm just going to set 0.2, 0.3, and 0.4. We get the exact same result. The gray node also have options for black clamp and white clamp. What does that do? It means that black clamp, no values will go below 0 in the negative values, and white clamp, nothing will go higher than 1. So you see my white here is at 1. So let me turn it off and I will show you here. If I crank up the gain here, you can see my value here is at all the way to 15. So that's an illegal color. You cannot have white that is more white than white. If I turn back on white clamp, you can see the value is stuck at 1. So yeah, in the end, in conclusion, we can do the same thing in Blender except for lift. I just couldn't get lift to work, and lift is so important. But for the tracking stuff, tracking the image, stabilizing it, and being able to dynamically select the color there for every frame, well, we cannot do this in Blender because the features just don't exist. So that was part 4 on the compositing series. Now you tell me in the comments, do you want me to continue with the compositing stuff, or you want me to go back to the regular Blender stuff? Well, I don't know. You tell me. We still have a lot to cover for compositing. Now, I look at the background and the light is so beautiful, and all I want is to warm my feet on the sofa, and that's what I'm going to do right now.